completely integrated, fully autonomous system placed on a modified M48A5 tank chassis. The Sergeant York features twin NATO standard 40mm guns as its main armament and has point detonating and proximity fused ammunition.
Imagine you are a U.S. Army general. You have flown in from Washington. You are standing on a reviewing stand at Fort Bliss, Texas. It's 1982. The Army is about to show you its brand new anti-aircraft weapon, the one that will protect American tank columns from Soviet helicopters pouring through Europe. The cameras are rolling, every senior officer in the room is watching. The system powers up and the turret swings around and points directly at the generals. Not at the target drone in the sky, at the generals, at the very people who flew in to be impressed by it. The crowd scatters, the technicians panic, and America's newest air defense system sits there, guns aimed at its own commanders, completely certain that a group of senior officers is the most dangerous aerial threat in the area. That is a true story. That happened. That is in the official Army documentation. And somehow, that is not even the most embarrassing part. The real problem it was supposed to solve. To understand how we got here, you need to know what the Army was genuinely scared of. The Soviets had the Me-24 Hind, a flying tank. It could pop up above a tree line, fire anti-tank missiles, and disappear before any ground weapon could respond. NATO war games ran the scenario over and over every time. Soviet helicopters tore through American armor columns in minutes. America's existing air defense for tank units was Vietnam-era equipment completely outmatched. In 1977, the Army launched a program called DIVAD, Division Air Defense. The requirements were clear. Keep up with the Abrams, engage an aircraft in under 5 seconds, work in all weather, day or night. And to move fast, they made one decision that would define the entire program. They would build it entirely from off-the-shelf parts. That one decision is where everything started going wrong. How Ford won a competition it lost. 5 companies competed. It came down to General Dynamics and Ford Aerospace. In live testing, General Dynamics scored 19 confirmed kills against target drones. Ford scored 9 by every objective measure: kill rate, accuracy, reliability. General Dynamics won. Ford got the contract. Let me walk you through why Ford had a marketing arrangement with Bofors, the Swedish ammunition company. Their weapon used 40mm Bofors rounds locked in by a business deal. General Dynamics used the superior 35mm NATO standard round. The Army chose the worst weapon because of a supplier agreement, a $7 billion contract to the company that lost the test. The weapon was named the M247 Sergeant York, after a genuine World War I hero. And 6 of the generals who approved the Ford contract later retired and went to work for Ford. That's not a procurement decision, that's a pipeline. The failures. Where do you even start? The problem started the moment testing began. The tracking radar adapted from the F-16's fire control system could not reliably distinguish between a helicopter and a cluster of trees. When the guns pointed upward to engage overhead targets, the barrels entered the radar's own field of view and confused the system. The gun was blinding itself. Reaction time against a hovering helicopter: 10 to 11 seconds. The Soviet Hind could appear, fire, and be gone in under 5. The core requirement, the only number that mattered, was being missed by double. And then there is the latrine. During one test, a Sergeant York powered up and locked its radar onto the spinning ventilation fan of a nearby portable toilet. The radar, designed to detect helicopter rotor blades, decided the latrine fan was an incoming enemy aircraft. It locked on, it tracked it, it did not let go. This is in the official program documentation. It is not a rumor. A portable toilet defeated America's most advanced air defense system, and it gets worse. Testing was repeatedly adjusted to help the system pass. When it failed against moving targets, drones were made to hover. When the radar couldn't lock on, engineers attached 4 radar reflectors to the targets before the system could achieve reliable lock. The requirement was 90% operational availability. Actual tested availability, 33%. I want you to sit with that. The Army's requirement was 90. The real number was 33. That is not a program falling short. That is a program that does not work. The official Army report concluded, as tested, the Sergeant York was not operationally effective in adequately protecting friendly forces during simulated combat. The demo that became a disaster. Back to Fort Bliss. February 1982. American and British officers gathered to watch the Sergeant York demonstrate what it could do. The system powered on, the turret swung toward the reviewing stand. The generals scattered. Technicians spent the entire day trying to fix it. They could not. At the end of the day, a Ford corporate representative stepped forward and offered an explanation. The vehicle had been washed the day before, he said. The water had damaged the electronics. A British officer looked at him quietly and asked whether it rains in Europe. Nobody had a good answer. Why nobody stopped it? After Fort Bliss, after the latrine, after 33% availability. The program kept going. Honestly, this is the part that should make you angry. Not the bad radar, not the toilet fan. This. $2 billion had already been spent. Ford had lobbyists in Washington. The 65 vehicles already built represented jobs in congressional districts across the country. The GAO warned repeatedly that the system was not meeting requirements. Those warnings were filed and mostly ignored. It took the personal intervention of the Secretary of Defense to end it. On August 27, 1985, Caspar Weinberger canceled the Sergeant York. He said marginal improvements were possible but not worth the cost. That was a polite way of saying, the thing does not work and it never will. What happened and what it means. The 65 completed Sergeant Yorks were not repurposed. They were not stored. The Army, eager to move on, turned most of them into targets on Air Force bombing ranges. The weapon built to protect American soldiers from enemy aircraft spent its final months being destroyed by American aircraft. The 6 generals who approved the Ford contract retired and went to work for Ford. A DOJ fraud investigation was launched. It was later canceled with no charges filed. America's real air defense gap, eventually filled by the Stinger missile system, which worked, cost far less, and never once mistook a latrine fan for a Soviet helicopter. Look, I want to be fair. The Soviet helicopter threat was real. The Army genuinely needed a solution. The engineers weren't stupid. They were working with a contract that was corrupted before the first bolt was turned. The failure wasn't just technical. The failure was that nobody in the system had more incentive to stop it than to keep it going. That is the same failure that killed the Zumwalt. The same failure that's bleeding the F-35 dry today. And it will happen again, because the incentives haven't changed. In the long history of American defense procurement disasters, very few have managed to be this expensive, this absurd, and this completely avoidable, all at the same time. Named after a genuine American hero, born from a rigged competition, defeated by a toilet fan, canceled after pointing its guns at its own generals. The Sergeant York is one of the most embarrassing and most preventable defense failures in American history. Subscribe to MisfireX. Drop a comment. Is this the worst procurement disaster you've ever heard of? Or do you know something that beats it? Let's talk. This is MisfireX. We find the misfires. We tell the truth.